Hello, everyone. I hope you had a fantastic holidays, New Year's, whatever you decided to celebrate. I hope it's pretty awesome. Ours is just wrapping up, actually, um, mainly because of family. But I've been out for the last month and a half, and I thought I'd bring something interesting and something I've always been interested in at the start of the new year as something new. So I wanted to bring to you the wonderful world of linguistics. I'm pretty sure that doesn't sound very interesting at all, but I want you to consider this. The way you frame and say something defines your perception of that thing. So what linguistics is the study of languages, and it's not just a study of other phonetics, other grammar, if it exists at all, things like that. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. Not just the way you pronounce things, but the way certain cultures pause when they speak, or the way they always are talking when somebody else is talking, stuff like that. But there's also another aspect of it that is more aligned with neurology and psychology, which I find a little bit more interesting than the most. And that is to say that language is used to frame our ideas. It is the only tool, the first tool that we've ever had to take an idea, frame it, and display it to somebody else that equally speaks that language. So it can frame and enhance and solidify what we're thinking and project it in a way that hopefully will help other people understand what we are thinking as well. It doesn't necessarily constrain the way we perceive. Like, language doesn't have, it has cultural boundaries, for example. It also has a limited vocabulary, a limited lexicon, if you will, of words that we have in our head. But it also allows us a focus to the attention of reality, to frame our reality for others to see. For example, when you're speaking to theists online in particularly, that you'll see that they have multiple definitions of the word faith. There's one accepted dictionary definition, which is why when you see me argue, I usually stick to the dictionary, because it's an objective interpretation of a word, so there's no deviation from that. It's one of the reasons why I like the dictionary more than people's perception of what a word should mean. But you'll see them use faith in a variety of different ways, because faith to them is perceived a variety of different ways. Language also can bring forth emotions and thoughts depending on how you use the word in a sentence and what you use it as. So, for example, the word atheist is benign, but when a theist says it in a sentence and then finishes with atheist, just the way you say it changes the meaning of it to mean more of a condescending insult than just a title or a person's non-belief. There's also the language of culture, and that's what I wanted to bring up in particularly on this video. And that's because there are words being used today that I find unacceptable to be used in common language when describing people. The languages that we use today are mixed and personified by, I guess you could say, the mainstream media is doing it mostly. I don't hear it anywhere else. And then the social justice warriors and the alt-right both do this to a varying length or degree, but they're both identitarian. And in fact, the identitarian politics arena all do this, which is very divisive and very counterproductive to actually bringing about a society that isn't full of douchebags, essentially. So think about this. When you're discussing with somebody the subject of race, for example, I personally will say that race does not exist for me. I don't see race, I see you as an individual. And whether or not you're a douchebag or not is entirely dependent upon how you act and how you decide to treat me. For I will treat you as I expect to be treated. But if you treat me horribly, I assume that that's how you want to be treated. That may be an erroneous assumption, because maybe they think they earned or demand respect, yet refuse to give respect. This is probably the case, which is why I give them 3 strikes and they're out, and then I turn into a douchebag. So there are words that are being used currently, or phrases, if you will, that alter our own perceptions of the world, unfortunately. And that's because we have adopted those phrases into our own common language. This is something I refuse to do. Mainly because I refuse to alter my perception of the world, because I think it's a more balanced and fair world than the one that's being portrayed. To give you some examples, when somebody describes a race into colors, white, black, brown, and so on, it alters our perception and gives focus to the skin versus the content of the person's character. When you generalize a group into saying that that group acts or behaves a certain way, you'll see stereotypes emerge, which may or may not actually be true. And in most cases, I find them not to be true. There's a relative minority, they happen to be the loudest, which gives the stereotype some validity, if you will, but it's largely just false. So, to give an example, here are 2 videos. I'm going to only play a clip of each one of them, first 30 seconds or so that BuzzFeed won't sue me because they're retarded. But only 2 words are being used, and they're asked to describe these words. This will give you a perception of why we should not use the words that the social justice warriors put forth, or any other group that seeks to divide based on stupid demographical information. The demographics are largely made so you can group people together in a reference type manner. Not necessarily does it actually mean that everyone thinks the same way in that demographic, which is a very erroneous way to think. It's the reason why I won't use people of color. It's a retarded phrase. It's useless. It also splits everyone up. Unless, of course, you think white is a color, then white belongs in people of color. But that's not how it's used. It's used to say everybody but white, which then divides everybody against white people. And then idiots like Richard Spencer spawn, because they think, hey, I'm white and you're attacking me. Why? Because the language you're using denigrates everybody that isn't a person of color. Anyways, here's the 2 clips, and we'll be right back.
Black means beautiful, intelligent, empowered, strong.
Black power, black people, Black Panther.
Beautiful. I don't even know if that needs much context.
The first thing that comes to mind when I hear the word black is Black Lives Matter.
I see the word apologetic.
Proud, resilient. I think of innovative.
I love the word black. I feel a lot of pride in being black.
Beautiful.
Privilege, I think power, access, luxury.
A race, some good, some bad. Can't be critical of all whites, but there is a strong element of racism in white Australia.
I think of Iggy Azalea and Miley Cyrus.
White is a way of being, doesn't always mean skin color. It's a way of thinking.
When I think about white, I think about maybe a group of people who I would love to be in harmony with, but don't always feel like they feel the same way towards me.
White, run, controlled system.
What's interesting about these 2 clips is that one has very poor ratings, like the like to dislike ratio, for example, is atrocious, and the other one is well liked, and it's the one where they say black. is the one that's more liked than the one that they say white. Because one's insulting, the other one's painting the color of everything's wonderful and peachy and happy over here. This perception has been developed and personified by gender studies, by sociology, by the women's studies degrees, all of this that puts forth the idiocy of social justice. As you can see, just by their own language, they have denigrated an entire race and exonerated another. This is the paramount thing of racism. This is why every religion, every theist, every ism attempts to redefine words to suit their narrative. Because the word as it's used, as it means today, does not necessarily give them enough leeway or power to do whatever the hell they want. So they have to redefine it to fit their narrative, to scope and shape their reality. The word racism, for example, is meant to say that you treat one race over another as superior or inferior. That's the definition of racism. So when you say black is beautiful, white is privileged and powerful and evil, essentially, you've denigrated one race in favor for another. If you say yours is superior and everyone else is not, you've automatically become a racist. But when you change the definition of the word from the treatment of one race over another superior to inferior to privilege plus power, well, you've just changed all of reality to suit your own narrative. And I disagree, and I don't accept that. This is why I love linguistics. It's the study of how language and culture and understanding or our thoughts align and collide. The language that we've developed is expressive and beautiful, but it also can be damaging and stupid at times. It's amazing. This is also why whenever you hear somebody say, as a, insert your race, you can almost automatically assume that that person's probably going to be a racist bastard. Because they're assuming and putting forth that because their skin color is X, therefore the next following phrase, sentence, or thought is important. More important than yours, in fact. So when you hear this,
very intriguing question. Who am I as a black woman, an African American woman in academia? The first thing I think to myself is, let me be careful how I answer this question because I do want to get a job again in the future. But as an African American woman, I feel, and this is just my interpretation of the world, I feel like I have to work harder. I feel like I have to work harder than everyone else. And it may or may not be the case that I have to do that. I work at a predominantly white university. I have worked with African American people as an executive director of a housing and human service organization in Buffalo in a predominantly black area. And I found that in that area, when I worked in Buffalo as a community worker, I was myself.
You can almost assume that they see everything through race. Everything at all. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It pretty much is divisive. And this is a college professor saying this, so you can automatically and probably not erroneously assume that she's teaching others the same thing. So why even bother scoping our language? Because it allows them to influence our perception of reality. I refuse to use these phrases because it is inherently racist to do so. It's damaging, it's divisive, it's counterproductive, it's stupid. Absolutely stupid. Yes, I hope you enjoyed that one. Think about the way you say things and what you allow other people to influence your language into saying things, and understand that that's what they want. They want to change that culture to fit their narrative. And no, you should never let somebody redefine a word That's not the way things work. If we allowed that, then we could make any word mean something that it doesn't. And what's the point of language at that point? Thank you for watching. Have a good day.
I don't like people taking my clothes off.